Fellow commissioners, will you please settle down?
No, this guy. System. We hope that you know.
Do you have your ducks on the row, President Maya?
Yes, I do. DP,
Thank you. Over to you, Commissioner Klaba.
Yes, thank you very much, Acting President. Good afternoon once again, President Maya.
Afternoon, Commissioner.
Good. This morning you presented your vision, and I must say I can't find fault with it. But I just want to take you on the point of transformation we raised earlier on. In 2017, when you were interviewed for the position of president, you made gender parity as one of your key focus areas, and I must say you have delivered on it.
Thank you.
And the record speaks for itself. 11 women judges to 12 male judges. I just want to contrast that to the heads of courts. In 2017, there were 4 female heads of court. 4 years later, let me not say how many there are now. In your view, has that situation improved? Then there were about 13 heads of, 14 heads of court, 4 of whom were women. The question, has that situation improved?
Thank you, Commissioner. No. And actually, it's likely to regress shortly. The first woman JP in the country, JP Leo, is retiring soon. And we have one candidate to interview to fill that position, who's a male. So we'll be one short, actually.
So what is the position currently?
It has not changed. Well, the only change is what happened in October when we appointed 3 women DJPs, which is a big improvement. It is a gain. One has to acknowledge that. So there has been, but we're looking for JPs, the actual heads who sit at the top of the table.
So you are actually confirming that the situation has regressed.
Yeah.
And that's 4 years later. Now, from your own observation as a member of this body since 2017, what could have been the reason, and what can be done to overcome this problem? Tapping on your experience, having improved the demographics in your own court.
I said in one of my long-winded responses earlier that when women are appointed into the bench, they must be given the same opportunities as their male counterparts who are no better endowed in any way than they are. Women must just be trusted to take up leadership positions, Commissioner Klaba, that's all I can say. Give women an opportunity to act as DJPs, as JPs, that's where it starts. Give women a chance, because there are women in all divisions of our courts.
You are right, you did opine on that. Let me just raise the issue of the Concord. See, Concord releases judges from active service relatively young and on a full salary for life. Don't you think that is actually escalating the problem? of brain drainage within the system. And that at some point, this thing will catch up with us, because we seem to be releasing at a much higher rate skilled judges, as I said, relatively young. What is your opinion and what can be done about it? Thank you.
It has its pros and cons. The pro being that I'm sure none of us want to see what happens in the US where people die in their 90s on the bench. I don't think that's a good thing. But then, as you point out, we lose relatively young judges who still have many years to give, and they live with that institutional memory and experience. And ironically, most of our retired judges are working in Namibia, in the neighboring countries. And there's so much to be done here, you know. We don't even engage them meaningfully.
Don't you think that, my last question as a follow-up, President, we discussed this with one of the commissioners, that would it not be an ideal thing to do that when you get discharged from the Concord, we appoint you, or we reserve appointments to specialist court for such people, so that we retain this institutional memory and we retain the skills that have actually been acquired over time. I'm reading this in the context of the vision that you painted here this morning. Has that not been discussed? If it has not, what is your take on this? Reserving positions, senior positions in the specialist courts for people who get discharged in the manner that we have just explained.
I'm not aware that it has been discussed, Commissioner. That's a fine idea. And in fact, DP Bese and I are contemplating a number of retired judges from the Constitutional Court. I can mention Deputy Chief Justice Museneke, Justice Yakub, were keen after their retirement to go and act at the SA, I suppose for the experience and just to, because it's a different court, and to impart the skills, yeah. But for some reason or the other, that never came to pass. Now, DP Bese and I have been talking, because we actually have one of such retired judges who's keen to go and act at the SCA and assist in because we've been appointing younger judges, not as experienced as we used to have back in the day. And that kind of skill would be precious. I don't have a clear answer for you now, but what I know, and it's something that has exercised my mind, that has worried me for a long time, is that we need to use those judges. We need to retain them somehow and use them. I think, well, I guess we'll have to just decide precisely, think about it, debate it, and see how we can best do that. But it's a skill that is lost to us that we should be using.
No, thank you very much, Judge President. Maybe it's a question left for the minister to look into, because we have invested so much in those people as a country. And even when they've been discharged, we continue to pay them full salary. All right, but that's not an issue. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Acting President.
Thank you, Commissioner Klaver. Commissioner Lucas.
Thank you very much, Acting President. Good afternoon, President Maya.
Afternoon, Commissioner.
Yes, today you are on the other side of the table. But thank you, welcome. Let me begin by saying there was a lot said about women's empowerment, gender equity, and things like that. The anomaly in what is being said already is the fact that we are going to interview 4 candidates, but you are the only woman. Not even there was the principle of 50-50. Possibly, I don't know, but that shows, and particularly also when we see how you have been supported in your nomination internationally.
Yeah.
You have become more or less the hope and the pallbearer for women's aspirations when you are sitting here. So just for the mere fact that you broke the glass ceiling to be able to sit here to do the interview for Chief Justice, we want to commend you. We really want to commend you and say that you have made us proud as women of South Africa. I have said it before, if a woman can even just be nominated as a president, it means that we have broken the glass ceiling. And that is what you have achieved. I will allow you to get to just...
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
It's fine,
Don't
you
know
don't
what
have to be
people
sorry. We are emotional beings as women.
Yeah, that's what you are accused of.
Ons het die
being
depressie nie,
emotional.
want ons hele is ons model.
And men as well.
So it's fine. I think no one will even think less of you if you become emotional. I'm sure if your mother is still alive today, she's very proud of you. That's how I feel.
Thank you.
So I just have 2 issues that I don't think it is questions, but it's issues that I think I should raise. I will be, if you are appointed, it will be one major achievement for me if we can really achieve the inclusivity of the judiciary. By making sure, particularly at lower levels, we address the issues. Sometimes you speak about our efficient...
Just for a second, Commissioner.
It's fine. Today and yesterday we heard how efficient and effective the Supreme Court of Appeal is and the Constitutional Court and so on. And I fear that people at that level become very complacent and they don't know at the level of true service delivery. It is not the experience of our people. That is why the issue of inclusivity that you spoke about, and also one single judiciary where things could be coordinated at a better level, it's commendable, it's notable. Because I think people at your level can become very complacent and in a comfort zone because of having the kind of support that they can garner, and not necessarily having the kind of volumes of contact with people at a grassroots level that you see in the magistracy. So there is 1 or 2 issues that I've experienced that is an issue. You mentioned the issue of incorporating the traditional courts. But even if we have the traditional courts, I don't know how effective they are. Because one of the issues that came out in our consultation with women across the country, particularly in the rural provinces, is the issue of how customary law is not working for our rural women. It's one of the issues. Secondly, the other issue is how courts at that level, rural as well as urban, is just not working for the vulnerable people. And I just, in a very short few sentences, if you can indicate how you think this single judiciary, of this single-minded judiciary, can address that kind of issues. I don't have to speak about women, I don't have to speak about gender, it has been properly addressed. And even if you don't get this position, which I sincerely hope you got on behalf of us as women, God be with you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. You got me crying, and I don't usually do that. Short answer. The idea of bringing traditional courts into the fold, into the mainstream, is to monitor and guide and be of assistance to those courts to ensure that they deliver justice to those communities they serve. That's all I will say on the subject, Commissioner. Keeping them close to the other rungs of the judiciary, I believe, will benefit them greatly and will give us a chance to observe exactly what goes on there and what does not go on there that needs to be done.
No, thank you. The commitment is enough. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Singh.
Thank you very much, Acting President. Good afternoon, President Maya. Good to see you again. I want to start off by saying that we've spoken a lot about gender transformation this morning. And many of us as commissioners have sat around this very table or other tables interviewing prospective candidates for appointment, both men and women. And we realize that our responsibility is to create a public platform for the candidates to express themselves, and secondly, to recommend to the President, who should be appointed. But the final call on who is appointed lies with the President himself. Now, I just want to share my disappointment that after the last interviews on the Constitutional Court appointees, that of the 4 very capable people that we recommended as a commission to the President, he chose to ignore the 2 very capable women and appoint 2 men to those positions. Do you have any view on that? Do you want to express a view? Because I certainly was disappointed that that had happened.
Utter disappointment. A feeling of utter disappointment, Commissioner. And I think I speak for a whole lot of South Africans, especially women.
Thank you. I'm glad I was not the only one that felt disappointed when I read this announcement by the President of the 2 people. Not that they are not capable of being Concord judges, they're extremely capable, but I would have thought that given the times that we face and given the imperatives that we have as a country for gender equality, etc., he could have considered at least one of those women. But anyway, I hope the Minister will take that up with the President when he meets him. It's not for us here. My next question is related to the issue of restoration of trust in the judiciary. Now, we know the judiciary is a critical key to our democracy. And earlier you spoke about the Afrobarometer survey, which was quite disappointing because, just to quote, it held that respondents with, quote, greater experience of lived poverty and less education are less trusting of the courts than are more secure and educated respondents. That's what it found. Now, what in your opinion could be potential reasons for this decline in trust in the judiciary by ordinary people? And how do you hope, if you're appointed as Chief Justice, to reverse this declining trust in the judiciary?
Self-introspection is a very difficult exercise, People don't like to be criticized. It's even more difficult to look at yourself critically. But look, I'll venture, I'm speculating now. It must be that courts are not delivering what they expect them to deliver. What else could it be?
So do you believe that these people have legitimate grounds to distrust the judiciary at this moment in time, given the turbulence and the political pressures that we are facing in the country, and some of the judgments and the delayed judgments, etc.?
Look, as I said at the outset, Commissioner Singh, while the institution does execute its constitutional mandate, it's not perfect. So there are definitely things we are not doing right, which all of us around this table know. So we need to get, as my children would say, just get our act together as a judiciary, pull up our socks and clean up.
Absolutely, and I hope that the new Chief Justice, whoever that is, together with the Ministry and the Department of Justice, can get our act together to deliver justice to the people of South. Because I was looking at another survey as well, which was included in the OCJ's strategic plan, based on 2018 Victims of Crime Survey, where 50.85% of households are, and I quote, not satisfied with the way in which the courts deal with the perpetrators of crime, close quote. Now that's 1 in 2. Now that's really an indictment on us and our judicial system. If 1 in 2 people that were surveyed can have that kind of opinion. So it's a tall ask for the new Chief Justice, and I do hope and pray that you have the strength and the character, if appointed, to change things around. The next question will relate to the objections. Now, we've gone through the nomination.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Singh, sorry to interrupt
Yes,
you. Before you pose your next question, I just want to ask President Maya to pull the microphone close to her.
Thanks for the reminder, DP.
You're most welcome. You may proceed, Commissioner.
Thank you, Acting President. I think Honorable Commissioner Lucas has spoken about your nominations, and you spoke about it, international nominations and people who supported you. But we also have to look at objections that are submitted to us. And I think you've responded adequately to the Tennyson objection in writing. But perhaps you want to tell us about it. And there was another Simon Monke, is that? The second. Sorry?
I don't know about another one. I was only served with the...
the other objection is in our documents here. Simon Mokone.
No, I'm not aware of that one.
That came through as objection number 3 in our documents.
I'll
Tennyson was objection number 1.
yeah, I know all about Tennyson. Maybe I can quickly deal with that one, then we'll get to this other one.
Okay, thanks.
I think Mr. Tennyson simply just took a dislike to me. He started in some magistrates' court in the Western Cape, an eviction case. An elderly gentleman let me leave it at that, lost the case, having created a whole lot of havoc there. I mean, he was asking magistrates to recuse themselves, that kind of thing. Went to the High Court. The state attorney, because the Minister of Justice was I believe there's still, he contemplates furthering this litigation of his. So Minister is one of the litigants represented by the state attorney, of course. The state attorney ultimately, after an avalanche of interlocutory applications, brought vexatious proceedings against him. So he was barred by the High Court from launching litigation in the High Court or in any court without permission, leave of a court. He's lost naturally. Case found its way at the Supreme Court of Appeal. 2 judges. He went through, I think, about 5 judges in the Cape High Court who are also respondents in this litigation that he brought against us, suing us for millions. I don't know where I'm going to get that money. So SCA, 2 judges dismissed his application for leave to appeal, came to me on Section 17(2)(f) of the Supreme Court Act for reconsideration. I found no merit. I dismissed it. It went to the Concord, headed by DCJ Zondo. Justice Madlanga was there, and a bunch of other judges. They dismissed it. Now he sues us. I even forget what he says, he accuses me of. But now he says he intends launching what's the rule 42, a rescission application. I don't know in which court, and that application has not yet been launched. So that's the long and short of it. My order was confirmed by the Constitutional Court, and that's the end of my story insofar as that is concerned. Now, about what is this other one about, Commissioner? If you can assist me. Oh, I found it.
Simon
I'm
Mokone.
sorry, I missed this. How could I miss it?
The other one I just ignored because I don't think it has any merit.
Oh, I see that he objects to my candidature, my ACJ Zondo and JP Mlambo. He challenges the whole nomination process. It seems his gripe is against the procedure, the process
yes,
followed by
yes.
the president. I don't know what to say to that.
And then he refers in 9.3 SCA, President Maya, JSC 96521. So
I know nothing about JD. That has not been brought to my attention. I don't know. I know nothing about that complaint, Commissioner.
all right.
I'm sorry, I can't help you.
I think we can't take it.
But-
The last question, Acting President, is
Yes.
I think you would recall, President Maya, that in a previous interview, when there was an outburst or real mayhem created when a certain recording was played to us. I think some commissioners are laughing about it. And there were certain questions that came from the chair at that time. In hindsight, I'm very glad that you've applied for this position, by the way. But
I didn't apply. I was nominated.
you nominated,
Yeah.
and by so many people. But in hindsight, what do you think now, if you have to look back at what happened then? Is there any comment you would like to make now about what happened then?
All I can say is that had absolutely nothing to do with me. A group of magistrates thought I would make a good Chief Justice, and they did their thing, held their meetings without even consulting me. And then I heard that a voice note singing about me had gone viral. Nothing at all to do with me. And now this thing is sprung upon me here. And I was most embarrassed. Those who know me, Mr. Singh, would know that that is not how I live my life.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Acting President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh.
Follow up, Acting President.
Honorable Minister.
No, thank you. I just have one follow-up, Judge President, on the question with regards to the last appointments, in that the President in 2019 appointed 2 Concord judges, Zukisa Chitri and Majid.
Yes.
And last year, as Honorable Singh has said, as an appointing authority, is the President not bound by Section 1742 to look into the whole broader issues?
Of course, Minister.
Okay, no, thank you.
But we still have our hopes and aspirations, and we get disappointed if we don't get our way as humans.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Commissioner Mbofu.
Thank you, Acting President. Well, let's just start with the follow-up on the Minister. 174.2 reads like this: the need for the judiciary to reflect broadly the racial and gender composition of South Africa must be considered when judicial officers are appointed. Can that section be used to exclude women from being considered or appointed to the Constitutional Court?
Never.
Thanks.
Not on the current facts when,
Thanks.
it will not be long-winded.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Okay, let me come to my questions. Well, before I do that, I think I must also start with a declaration. I don't know if Mr. Ntsabeza SC is still here, so I wanted to make a declaration for him first. That one of your mentors and the people who you say brought you here was actually sitting here in the room. I'm sure him and Judge President Hlophe are very proud of you right now, whatever happens. Well, now my declaration is that Acting President, President Maya and I did pupillage together. And we spent a night together.
Please explain that, Commissioner Moore.
No, I'm not going to explain it, President. No, Acting President, what happened is President Maya and I and a late gentleman called Mr. Mgijima had a study group as pupils. And the three of us one day sat before an exam of civil procedure, sat in the inner chambers library, studying for the following day's exam. And it was the first time in my life I did this thing called cross-nighting. We didn't do it deliberately. I'm just attesting to her industry. Because of her, we worked there until when we realized it was actually the time to write the exam. That's how we managed to spend the night together. And the only witness is unfortunately departed, so it's just me and her now. Thank you. President Maya, no, I was telling that story really to attest. I think the very first sentence you uttered this morning when you were giving your vision was about that word industry. And I see some of the people who nominated you also use that word. And the serious part of that story is the fact that I'm a first-hand witness to how hard you work and how you could make me have to work the whole night through. Now, I want to ask you about transformation. As you know, I sit here, occupy this seat as representing advocates for transformation, which is part of the GCB. But before I do the questions on transformation, and because one of them was covered by Commissioner Singh partly, I see that you wrote in 2007 a paper delivered a paper called The Structure and Function of the South African Courts, which was delivered at an SCA open day on the 30th of May, 2007. Now, the reason I'm raising that is because I'm very excited right now because I've had this idea and I've been threatening to write about it, of collapsing the SCA and beefing up the Constitutional Court. And when Justice Matopo and you have raised it formally, then I'm quite excited. And I want your comment, because my view on this is that it must be done. No, obviously not haphazardly. We need a lot of thought and writing about it. But would you agree that one of the quid pro quos for that would have to be strengthening, and I don't know exactly how, but strengthening considerably the appellate capacity of the divisions, yeah, of the law divisions. And in fact, in my rough model, half of the people in the SCA would go to the Concord maybe, and the others would go towards strengthening that appellate capacity of the divisions. Now, so I'd like you to comment on that one, but secondly, to comment on if our model, I'll call it our model for now, ever works out, what that would do for access to justice in South Africa. Because right now, an ordinary person like me, if I have a case here, then I must go to the full court, then I must go to the SCA, then maybe I must go to the Concord. It's completely impossible. So that's the second aspect, is the access to justice issue. And thirdly, the fact that this whole AD, as I prefer to call it in this context, is an anachronism anyway, which maybe was part of the 1994 compromises to keep it. 30 years on, shouldn't we have a serious look at the model that you and Justice Matopo seem to favor? And what should we do to develop the idea?
Thank you for the questions, Commissioner Mbofu. About collapsing the two courts, that would contribute immensely to access to justice, because it would take out, in fact, it's not just one level of the appellate process. Remember, when you lose at the High Court, you have to apply for leave to appeal, then the judges may refuse, then you seek leave from the SCA, it grants you, you go through there, and the two judges say no, it comes to me. So by taking out the SCA from the equation, you'd be cutting off a huge component of the litigation costs involved in an appeal that will ultimately end up in the Constitutional Court. In the Constitutional Court. So that would be a big advantage, a big plus of that model, of your model. As you said, it requires careful thought. I mean, it can't be done haphazardly. It would require resources. I mean, how do you beef up the appellate, which would not really be so much of a problem, beef up the appellate process in the High Court. We already have 3-panel
appeals,
full court benches. Maybe you tinker with the numbers, increase them, things like that. But it does require careful thought. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. But no question about it, in terms of litigation costs, it would work, like magic. And let me not say more on that.
Okay. Now the same question, but now looking at it, assume you get appointed.
Yeah.
As a Chief Justice, how would the increased complement in the Constitutional Court, assume we do away with the on-bank requirement of the judges having to sit all together, how would that then assist us? Let's assume we then have 20 judges of the Constitutional Court, and on your model of 7 or 9 minimum sitting.
As I said earlier, the immediate advantage would be that you'll be able to have more than one panel of judges sitting. Well, there's only one court, but they sit only twice or once a week. So you'll be able, I mean, we can't avoid the fact that litigation has grown tremendously. So there's lots of work, and I think that could help. I mean, with the general jurisdiction there, it would be a boon. So you'd find work for those judges. And as I said, is it Section 172? I mean, it contemplates that you still have your constitutional matters, and then the matters that raise an arguable point of law of general public importance, which ought to be considered by the court, then those would be your 2-panel, your 7-panel matters. But if you still need, there's a matter of great constitutional importance, you still have your 11 or whatever number sitting.
Thank you.
So no one would would go, no one would sit idly in their chambers with no work.
Yeah. Thank you. Then there's an issue which I'd like you to help us with, to do with not just this process. Again, you'd be chairing the JSC, obviously,
Yes.
if you are appointed. And it seems to me that there is an issue that we have overlooked. We might have shortchanged ourselves as the JSC. And it goes even to this process. Whether there's room for us to recommend, let's say, recommend more than or less than the number of candidates, if you know what I mean. Let's say here to recommend 2 or 3 or 1. Now, the point I make is that the sub 174(3) of the Constitution says the President, as head of the National Executive, after consulting the JSC and leaders of the parties represented in the National Assembly, appoints the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice after consulting the JSC, and appoints the President of the President and Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. And then that's duplicated, obviously, with the Chief Justice the other judges of the Constitutional Court are appointed by the President as head of the National Executive after consulting with Chief Justice and so on.
Yes.
And when the JSC does the list. Now, would there have been anything to circumvent the situation that Commissioner Singh was talking about? Would there have been anything against this Constitution if in October, for example, we had said to the President, here are your 5 names according to the Constitution, but we, as the JSC, would, in that list, we're going to rank the people.
Yeah.
In other words, we say, number 1 is Justice, I won't mention them by name. Let's say the woman, one of the women judges. Number 2 is so-and-so, number 3 is so-and-so. Of course, the President can still overrule us. But is there anything preventing the JSC from saying, these are the people, this is the list, but this list goes like this?
Not from my reading of the provisions, Commissioner Mbovu. And one has to ask the question, I mean, for these particular sittings, what would be the point of the President sending 4 names to the JSC and the JSC throwing back 4 names to the President? Why did we go through all of this?
Absolutely.
Surely the JSC must have the power to rank. Or I don't know what else you can do,
Yes.
but you have certain powers.
Yes, thank you. Then, if we may then go to the issues of transformation. Acting President, please bear with me. The first issue has to do with women empowerment, a subject that I feel very strongly about, and I know you feel 100 times stronger about. There's a terrain that we all scatter around, particularly when it comes to gender empowerment. And that has to do with what in the feminist movement is called relative disadvantage. The position of black women, African women in particular, vis-a-vis white women. And in South Africa, it's a contradiction, and I'd like you to comment on it. Or for those who don't do dialectics, we'll call it a paradox. And it's something like this, that in the struggle against racial oppression, black males are your friends, and white women are your enemy, quote unquote. But in the struggle against gender oppression, white women are your friends and black men are the enemy, part of the enemy. How is that from a black woman's point of view? I'm now talking about the profession and the judiciary. How should we address that relative disadvantage in making appointments, in briefing patterns, and all the things that we've spoken about? Sorry, the second part of that question is what is the role of the Office of the Chief Justice in particular in ensuring that what you see from the bench, which is that the government is mainly represented by white male advocates. Many other leaders of the bench have told us that that's what they see, at least at face value. Is there any role that the Chief Justice or the bench as such could play in nudging the state, the reluctant state, away from that? But I'd like to start with the gender question.
In relation to the first part of your question, all I will say, Mr. Mbofu, Commissioner Mbofu, is that black women have always been at the bottom of the very bottom of the heap, wherever you go. Read what you will in that statement. Regarding the role, our role in changing the situation, I'm not entirely sure how much more the judiciary can do to nudge, as you call it, the organs of state to do the right thing, other than to shame them on public platforms as we do. I really don't know. I mean, we can't force them not to brief their white silks. We can't tell them not to do that. But we can make the point, as we are doing now, that what you are doing is wrong on public platforms, so that all South Africans know, hear about what's going on. That yes, you can, no one is saying don't use white silks with their, wealth of experience. But you can't just let them eat the cake alone. Make sure that you empower the needy ones as well. There's enough to go around for everyone.
Yes, thank you. And for that, we can't blame the white lawyers, because what must they do? If somebody brings a brief, I would take it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, okay, that's fine. I think we've covered. The last question then is just to piggyback on Commissioner Singh's question, because I was going to ask you about the disappointment that you must have felt when you were this side of the table in October.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mbofu, I just
No,
no,
don't worry. I was just simply saying that I'm piggybacking on Commissioner Singh's question, which you have already answered, about the disappointment you felt when, in October, you with us sitting this side made the recommendation and it was ignored of two capable women. But I wanted to link that to you, and you don't have to answer this. I'm putting you on the spot. For you, this was not the first experience. In 2012, you came here and you were interviewed for a position in the Constitutional Court. And you and a man, Justice Zondo, were recommended. And the president then, President Zuma, overlooked, that's my word, not yours, overlooked you and appointed Justice Zondo to the Constitutional Court. Now, how did that make you feel? Obviously, at a personal level, you were disappointed. Yeah. We don't have to go there. Yeah. But in terms of whether the state was serious about the imperative, let's assume, well, I'm told that you interviewed very well and greatly and better, but I can't say because I didn't watch those interviews.
You were not there.
Yes, unlike these ones of last year. But let's assume, for argument's sake, you interviewed equally, you were equally good. What message did those actions of former President Zuma, how did you interpret that outside of the personal?
Well, it was, here we go again. That's the lot of women not taken seriously. Right, I don't know what it was his prerogative. I don't know what his motives were. But I believe that I was, and many people, those who were here and others, were satisfied that I was a worthy candidate. I'm not saying I was a better candidate than my colleague, but having regard to the demographics and the injunctions of Section 174, I think it was an opportune moment to appoint a woman, but it wasn't done.
Thank you. Well, let's hope history will not repeat itself. Thank you, Acting President.
Thank you, Commissioner Mpofu. Professor Schleber.
Thank you, Acting President. President Meyer, when you spoke during your presentation of your vision, you indicated that you would like to see that the judiciary be combined as one. What is your vision specifically? How do you see the interaction? Perhaps I should put the question straight. Do you think it's time, or is it something that you would consider to have a career path for judges? Could you elaborate on that, please?
The first advantage is that if you, it's what the magistrates are saying now, that if we were linked to the judges, we would be under the OCJ and would not be, just at a practical level, would not be experiencing the problems where, you know, the Department of Justice, sorry, Minister, is just not taking good care of us. Just from that point, they would be better resourced, because I'm not saying this senior judiciary has, you know, enough resources, but we would be able to find creative ways of making sure that everybody, you know, gets the necessary tools of trade with the legal that we are given, so that at least the course can function. What you say about a career path is something I've chatted about with colleagues. That if we are this disparate institution. I don't even know much about the small claims court. When I need to go and check online exactly what's going on there. I didn't even know, because I don't usually pay attention what the jurisdiction was there, and I was surprised to see that, oh, it's 20,000 rand now. So the lower rungs of the judiciary are neglected. And if we keep them close to us, then we have a chance of infusing some of the experience. There will be engagement, because they are here with us, sharing our experiences and skills with them. It requires more thought. It requires thought, Commissioner, but that's the basic idea. And there's absolutely no reason why, well, it's something that we are doing now, that the magistrate does not rise through to the High Court, through to the SA, which we've achieved, by the way. I have 2 women magistrates at the SA who are doing well, and all the way to the Constitutional Court. So that is something I have in mind. I know my response is vague, but that's the general idea, that we get there. But it needs thought and debate. Of course, I would not be making these decisions alone, and I don't have all the answers on my own. I would need the input of other interested people, including my colleagues. But that is the idea, the general idea.
And do you think that the type of training that the universities are currently doing is satisfactory to provide the lawyers of the future?
Unfortunately, no.
Could you elaborate? Where would you see different changes taking place? What type of things would you change?
It's something that's been in the debating circles for a while, that this LLB, for a long time now, this LLB is not producing the caliber of it's just not enough, the caliber of lawyers that we deserve, and even those holders of those degrees, deserve. And I tend to be conservative. I don't see anything wrong with how we used to do things. So maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
Thank you, President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you,
May
Professor
may I
Slem.
make a follow-up just on this one?
Please do,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
no, it's only on this issue of the LLP. If you recall, we agreed on this integrated LLP simply because with fewer numbers of black practitioners way then at the time. So one of the things you integrate the 6-year LLB program, PPROC, into congested 4 years, and then it lacks with the practical and all that. So I'm asking, I want to find out if one can introduce an element of practical within the LLB training as a course. Don't you think that the situation may impact?
Yeah, that could help, Commissioner. That could help a lot, actually. Mm. But you know, the irony of the situation is that we sit with an influx. I mean, a whole lot of LLB graduates who can't even find articles. So that idea it has not yielded the result that was hoped it would.
No, I agree with it. It was not a good one. We just need to revisit it. It's Prof here and us at the Law Society. No, thank you, President.
Thank you, Commissioner Nakiesi. Commissioner Breitenbach will be joining us virtually.
Thank you, Deputy President, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Well, thanks. You must be quite tired.
I am indeed, so I hope you'll go easy on me.
Yeah, probably. A couple of questions ago, you said in reply to I think a follow-up question about why women in general, but probably judges, weren't being given, plum cases, difficult work, niche work, and you said, people needed to trust them, trust women. Just trust them, and then, they can do the job. And I absolutely agree with you. Of course, they can do the job. Mm. There can be no doubt that they can do the job, and you are the living embodiment thereof. So, who is it? Who are these people who don't trust women?
It's the men. Remember, I said they are the field. They control. In fact, they don't just control the field. They are the field. So they are the ones who hold the power strings.
Yes. And men keep on saying, empower women and treat women well, but they continue to have this patriarchal approach. Mm. Men who don't trust the women. So how do we address that?
I'm afraid I don't have an answer for you, Commissioner. I mean, we can only do our best, do the work which we do, and if that's not enough to convince people that these people are capable, what more can you do? Well, I suppose we can do and...
And men constantly suggest, and on this panel as well, on the JSC, suggest to men, and you've sat on a panel when they've done it, as have I, and it really does, I suppose, irk me. Mm. They suggest to men, why don't you withdraw from this race so that, a black woman may have a chance at this job? I find that particularly patronizing, to suggest that in order for a black woman to be able to compete, she shouldn't have to compete with men.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any, actually it's intended to, I think they believe it's to assist us. You have to be at the receiving end of these things to understand just how they impact you and your group. So I don't hold it against our male colleagues. They think the intentions are good, but the impact is not at all, at least on us women, because when we come here as candidates for that job, candidates who happen to be women, which of course is something to be taken into account, but that's not our card that I'm a woman, so give me this job. No.
You don't need any favors. You're capable of competing on your own.
Exactly.
My second question, President Meyer, is if you are appointed, you will head the judiciary and you have really good ideas about combining the lower courts with the superior courts. The problem remains that the courts are not functioning well. Your court excluded, of course, and the constitutional court's doing better, but generally speaking, the courts are not doing well. Court hours are low, finalization rates are bad, and there are many reasons for that, none of them good. And we now got the second Zondo report, and again, there are many prosecutions recommended therein, and it doesn't only depend on the police to investigate and the NPA to prosecute. They need courts to do it in.
Yep.
How do you see the courts dealing with this deluge of cases that are going to be coming our way? Do you have any suggestions about how those should be dealt with?
Well, I'll start with, I believe in working with what you have, and our situation right now, as you know better than I do, is not a particularly good one financially. You'll recall I said when I spoke on my vision that there are actually a number of high courts, Commissioner Breitenbach, that do well. And what one sees is that they do well because there's firm leadership there. If you have a good person at the top who is not afraid to chase colleagues to do what they signed up to do, then you're not likely to have problems. We have case flow management systems. We have norms and standards. Now, if leaders understand their responsibility to ensure, as set out in the Superior Courts Act and elsewhere for the magistrates, and they do their job and ensure that their colleagues, well, it starts with the Chief Justice, I suppose, who has the oversight of the entire judiciary. The Chief Justice should worry when they hear that the magistrate in Palm Ridge, the Chief Magistrate, maybe Commissioner Makwanisha went to visit the court and found that at 11 a.m., no one was sitting, but people were milling around in their offices and in the corridors. Someone has to crack the whip. That's what it takes. So in short, we know that because there are high courts that are already performing well now, and the distinguishing factors between them and the ones that are not producing the required results is firm leadership and following, the procedures that are there for judicial officers, on how they should execute their functions. Then we need to follow up on that. But you make a point that there's likely going to be a deluge of these cases, and I don't think even with the best intention and best work output, the present courts can cope. Well, I'm speculating. One doesn't really know how many cases will arise. But if things should come to a point that the existing courts are not coping, then money on the broke country or no broke country minister, something has to be done to establish courts that can deal with those cases, because it's important to act on the report. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, President Meyer.
Follow up.
Thank you, Commissioner Breitenbach. Follow up, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, President, for the response on the question of withdrawal. But is it entirely correct that this body tells a man to withdraw in favor of women? Because as a member of this body, you will know, President, that there are men who are told to withdraw because they are just coming across as being extremely incompetent and embarrassing this body. And one such man is Judge, was it a Judge Judicial from Northwest, I think is late now, may his soul rest in peace. But he was asked here to withdraw, and it was not in favor of a woman, but it was on the basis that their performance or issues that get to be raised are such that they should have used their conscience to stay out of this process. So, and secondly, this body has actually told women who came across limited to withdraw.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so to create an impression that men are being told to withdraw in favor of women is not entirely correct.
I agree with what you've said, Commissioner. Well, Commissioner Bredenbach is here, and I have no doubt that she can defend herself, but I'll say what I understood her to mean. I thought, because I have had, I've had it here over the years being suggested, being asked of males why they have applied when there's a woman and the demographics. I can't remember the particular facts offhand now, but it has happened. And the suggestion was that why are you here? Why did you not pave way for this woman? And the point we are making is that we understand that actually that's meant in very good spirit. It's meant to promote the cause of women. But women don't appreciate it. We don't want to appear like we're asking for handouts. We have our own pride, you know. That's what I thought she meant. That's how that question makes me feel, at least speaking for myself.
Thank you, Commissioner Malema. Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you, Acting President. Good afternoon, President Meyer, once again. I'd like to start focusing on the role of the Chief Justice as Chair of the JSC. So, and just maybe to start with, to make a statement that you already, to an extent, give some leadership in the JSC, where, for example, you chair a committee or committees. Perhaps you can give your own account of your experience in that regard to the Commission, and how things are going there, and how that would be able to assist you if you were to be appointed as Chief Justice. What would you be able to draw on?
I'm sorry, Mr. Barnett. I missed a huge chunk of the question. Can you just repeat it for me?
Sorry, your role as Chair of Committees in the JSC, that has already been taking place for some time. So
yes.
Just what experience do you draw from that, just to maybe inform the Commission on that, and how you will draw on that, or how that might be able to assist you if appointed in the role of Chief Justice?
Oh, thank you so much, Commissioner. Oh, well, I have chaired, remember there was a gender subcommittee that was elected to draw a response to the CGE, the Commission for Gender Equality report. I wonder what happened to that, by the way. And I was elected to chair that subcommittee, and got an opportunity to work closely with a few of the commissioners. And then there's the screening committee, of course.
Sorry, Chair, there seems to be a loss of sound from
He's back.
The power seems to be back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can continue, I'm sorry.
I don't see Commissioner Barnett. I don't know if you can hear me.
Commissioner Barnett, can you follow the conversation?
I can hear now. There was a slight break of sound, but it's all back on now again.
Yes, it's because there was load shedding earlier on.
Can you hear me, Commissioner Bernard?
I can hear you, may proceed, please.
Okay, thank you. I was explaining the roles I've played in the internal structures of the commission. The experience I got there really was just to get deeper insights into the responsibilities of the commission. Let me just hasten to point out, Commissioner Bernard, that I chair a lot of bodies, so and chairing one committee is pretty much the same as chairing another. It's bringing organization, I mean just bringing order and organization to the proceedings. There's nothing extraordinary about that. I don't think I've gained more from sitting there. It's just been more work for me than the experience I get from sitting in the big JSC.
But I think it helps you with the internal workings of the JSC to a certain extent, except that you obviously sit there as the president of the SCA as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, on transformation and modernization of the JSC itself, it sits with, for example, criteria for aspirant judges that have been determined and published some years ago. There's been some press about that, and this is despite the fact that one knows over time things have changed in the judiciary and so on, and so there might be need for changes regarding that since those criteria were worked out, and then the way meetings is held has notably changed over the last couple of years, partly due to the COVID, the pandemic and the online type of meetings, and then we also know that the JSC mandate is wider than just appointing judges. For example, I'm thinking specifically of the advisory role that's set out in the Constitution. So what is your vision for the JSC in general and more specifically with regard to these aspects that I've now highlighted?
Well, in addition to those aspects you've highlighted are the proposals that have come from interested parties, about the manner in which we conduct our business, just to coin it crisply. My short answer, Commissioner, would be that I'm hoping that the meeting we had, the body has undertaken to have shortly, will just review everything, and then ideas can flow from there. I don't really want to venture any opinions on that at this stage and here. It's just safe to say that the JSC intends to have to do an introspection and look at these processes for the benefit of interested parties who may wonder if we were even listening to them.
And then if one, just moving on to a different aspect now, and that's just the Office of the Chief Justice, if appointed, thinking about yourself, what would the weaknesses or perhaps blind spots be, and how would you counter those weaknesses or challenges that you might face if they're not weaknesses?
You mean in that department?
No, I mean in respect of yourself to deal with that department.
Oh, well, the most obvious thing is that I've only ever led the Supreme Court of Appeal, which is a small court with 25 judges and 68 support staff, and that's a huge institution. I mean, the entire, now you're scaring me because you're forcing me to think about the enormity of this job, because it's not just the OCJ, it's all the other things that the CJ, the Chief Justice, is responsible for. It's a big job. But as I said when I outlined my vision, there's a lot of support around the Chief Justice. We've seen it. I've seen it at play, at least in my time in the Heads of Court cluster. The OCJ plays they truly play their part. They offer the support. I have no doubt that they would put me through Yeah, I'm sorry, English is my second language, and when I get tired, it just escapes me. I've no doubt that I would have the necessary support. I'm a quick learner, I must say, and I have a very strong character. So I would be able to manage whatever challenges came my way. But with that kind of support, I'm sure I'd quickly come to grips with everything that comes with the job. I'm ready for that.
Thank you. And then if one just thinks of your role as leader of the Judiciary and one thinks about Section 165, which gives the Chief Justice responsibility over the judicial functions of all courts. Much of what has been said today deals with higher and magistrates courts, yes. And let's call it the more commonly known court system. But then Section 166E defines judicial system to also include any other court. So, and that when they, in the context of other than the higher and the magistrates court. So then, could you just discuss your vision as Chief Justice regarding these other courts? One example mentioned already was earlier by you, the small claims court and so on. But in general, what would your vision be for these other courts?
Well, I don't have a defined vision at this stage, Mr. Bernard. I mean, as I said, these courts, by and large, wallow out there. They are the forgotten stepchildren. But one thing that rings in my mind is that we need to bring them into the fold, and then we'll take things from there. I've read up on them on the internet, and I don't think that is enough. One needs to actually engage with those institutions physically to have a real experience of exactly what goes on there. I can't draw a vision on what I've read from the internet and anecdotal accounts from people I've asked about the operations there. But my key thing right now is to bring them into the fold and then get to know exactly what's going on. And with the assistance of my colleagues, we'll make the necessary plans to do whatever is necessary to give them support or whatever is needed.
Thank you, President Meyer. Thank you, Acting President.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett.
Quick follow-up, please, Acting President.
Yes, you may
proceed,
yes, Commissioner Bof.
Thank you very much. A very quick one, President Meyer. I was just reminded by one of Commissioner Barnett's questions. As you know, that in October, this JSC, of which you were a part, agreed to have a workshop of the JSC, particularly because there are new commissioners and so on, but also to try and streamline how we work. The view which I shared, or at least expressed, was that that should be rather done when there's a new Chief Justice with that person, because that person will be chairing the JSC going forward. And that seems to be what has happened. Now, if you were appointed, would you be keen or able to convene such a workshop as soon as possible, if possible, even before the April sitting, so that, going forward with the new Chief Justice, we would basically be moving from the same page, so to speak?
The sooner the better, Commissioner. That's absolutely, it has, whoever gets the job must be prevailed upon to do that. We can't afford to wait.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting President.
Thank you, Commissioner Bofo. Commissioner Matolo, your hour has come.
Okay, thank you, Acting President. Justice Meyer, I greeted you earlier on.
Yes, good afternoon again, Commissioner.
Yes, and I've been waiting so much for this opportunity, and I thought I'm too far below to ask you some of the questions. But what I must say that I really appreciate you having availed yourself. It's actually affirming the role of women in our society. One of the things in your vision, you had a lot of issues that you raised about your vision, and what I just wanted, maybe if you could add on your vision, is to the interaction with the professional and stakeholders. I'll tell you why I'm saying that, in the sense that we have this, whether it's 6 months meeting with the heads of court, where we meet with public works, everybody's there. And for me, they haven't served the purpose they're supposed to serve. Because I always feel it's a talk shop. There's no monitoring of what the issues that are being raised. Yeah. For instance, the profession will raise issues of the operations of the court. There are frustrations, but come next 6 months, it's still the same. So I think those are the things that you should really put your, they are called PEEC meetings or NECC meetings, but they always happen, but there's nothing that monitors. I mean, public works will be defending themselves, so and so is the, but nothing comes out of it. Can you just prioritize that so that at least we move together with the profession, because the courts cannot work without the profession. And those are some of the challenges that the profession is experiencing. And the lifts not working, the air conditions, and it will actually even assist you as judges, you know, if those things are implemented. The second issue is just a follow-up on the issues of, the briefing patterns. I know that a lot of people raise that issue, and I want to assure you that as a profession, we have done our best. We have come up with a legal sector code. We had the support of the Department of Justice and the ministry, but it's sitting somewhere. You know, when executives, it's sitting somewhere in the DTI and it doesn't move. For me, the bottlenecks, I think they are here, they are listening, the bottlenecks that happen in between the executives themselves, it becomes a problem. Because we thought by now the monitoring council will be in place so that we see that whether it works or not. Yeah. So I think I just wanted to I'm behind you. That's my passion. But the executives must assist us to make sure it happens. The third one, that was a follow-up. The second one, I wanted to, not in defense of the BLA, but I'm just saying the issue of acting judges. There's a perception out there from the profession, so that because the acting appointments comes from the JPs, you get invited. And some of the JPs, when you submit names, they said, wait for me, you shouldn't come to us. Yeah. And this is where the perception of saying favoritism and all that comes from, But I remember we had suggested to the minister a policy on the acting appointment so that we participate as a profession also, submit names, so that at least people shouldn't be seen as being overlooked, So I just wanted you to at least to be assured that if we suggested a way forward for acting appointments, we shouldn't be calling just this JP Tlaleti, hey, can you assist our members? At least there must be a policy. So I think that's what I wanted just to. We understand the perception is all there, so we need to deal with it. I think the third one, for me, the first one, it was clarity. Ne? the third one is, for me, I understand that, for instance, Commissioner Mpofu and Justice Matopo, they are mooting this idea of merging the two courts. And for me, I'm not sure, I just want to know your take on this. I understood the Constitutional Court to be there to develop our law, deal with constitutional issues, but more and more I see it being packed with appeals and appeals and appeals, And I still feel that, I may be wrong, we haven't developed the South African law in terms of our constitution to suit South Africa. We still refer to Roman Dutch law, to the common law. If we merge the two, aren't we eroding that part of us developing our own South African law? That's what I just wanted to hear from you.
There are 5 points, and my response to points 1 to 4 is all noted, Commissioner Lepu. And if I'm appointed, you can be sure that I'll do something about them. Now, about the last, just remind me, what was the last one? Just a keyword? Oh, the collapsing of the two courts. Yeah. I don't know if using the two courts would dilute anything. I mean, the two courts apply the same law, Commissioner. And I think the real issue is the increasing of the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court. And we will see in fact, that's why I was even suggesting getting more judges, or so that you could have two panels, because you have a stream, sort of two different streams of cases. The more generalist cases that still end up there, and the truly constitutional matters. So I think the two-panel solution might deal with that. But as for your fear, your concern that doing away with the SCA does not apply its own law, it's bound to apply, like the High Courts, the Constitution and the law. So they do the same thing. It's just that there are certain powers that the High Court and the SCA don't have. Declaration of constitutional invalidity, for example, only the Constitutional Court can confirm, small, well, not small, things like that. I still find merit in the idea of using the two courts. But it does not have to happen now. It could be a medium to long-term, well, or even short-term goal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Judge Acting President.
Thank you, Commissioner Matolo Lepu. Commissioner Malema, I seem to recall that you said you no longer have any questions.
I didn't say anything.
Do you want to say something now?
Yes.
Please do.
No, I'll be very brief. I just have 2 questions. President Mai, earlier on you spoke about perception being the most important thing in the judicial. This thing of judges going to houses of politicians, and when asked about that, they say no, they went to discuss matters of national importance with politicians, which they can't take the country into confidence, meaning a judge and a politician have got some secret that they can't tell us about. Does it help to enhance the good image of the judiciary, or is contributing to what Commissioner Singh was talking about of lack of confidence, which is growing amongst the population because of those types of characters that we find amongst ourselves?
That's a tough one, Commissioner Malem. Let me first say this. In Bloemfontein, I was neighbors with the Premier, the former Premier, just 10 minutes apart, our houses, for about for the length of his tenure. If I was driving out of my house and I saw his entourage, leaving, I would turn back. I literally ran away because I was scared of, I didn't want to meet him. The one time I met him was during, we were interviewing for, I think about 4 years back, interviewing for a vacancy in the Bloemfontein High Court. I met him at the tea. I did not even introduce myself, that, we're actually neighbors. So I'm afraid of things. That's a literal translation from isiXhosa. But to answer you more directly, look, I can imagine a few instances where a head of the judiciary would have private business with well, not private, sorry, official business with the head of state. I imagine that if, for example, about recommendations of the JSC, it's not the president who would, if the president commanded the Chief Justice, well, not commanded, asked the Chief Justice to report at his home to discuss those recommendations, there would be nothing untoward with that kind of meeting at the president's official residence. I don't know about the privacy of the. I mean, why it would not be disclosed. I can't really say anything about that. If it were me, if I went to attend that business, because that information belongs to the public anyway, so we serve the public, I would disclose it. That I actually went to see President Ramaphosa to discuss the recommendations of the JSC. He had asked me to visit him. But I don't know, I can't really comment intelligently when I don't have all the facts. I don't know what that was about.
In 2010, we had, during the World Cup, we had special courts that were dealing with those matters of related to. Sorry, President. And before I move there, I just want to agree with you that from time to time, you, as head of court, you'll meet, or as a judge, whatever, you'll meet with the leadership of the country. But when you are asked, you'll be able to say, I went there to discuss the recommendations of the JSC. But once a judge comes across as saying, we want to discuss a matter of national importance, and then you don't want to disclose to the country as to what is that matter, it means a judge can have a secret with a president or a politician. It's a worrying fact. But moving to the next one, 2010 there were special courts. Why are we not creating special courts to speed up matters of corruption? For instance, we had a commission here that was investigating corruption. And in the two reports that came out, nothing came out except to recommend a further investigation. After spending 1 billion, we're still furthering another 2 billion, another investigation. If there was an alarm like those matters were referred to that commission, there's corruption in Transnet. These are the people who are responsible. The same recommendation, you don't need a recommendation of a commission to investigate a crime. Now, we are told after 2 billion, we must still investigate further the possibility of a crime. So, instead of commission, shouldn't we have special courts dedicated to corruption? So that once an investigation is done, then the decision is taken to prosecute. You have a court that is dedicated to this corrupt matter. I will tell you why. This matter of corruption is a big problem in this country. And it must be attended specially and urgently the same way we did in 2010. Shouldn't we, if you are appointed, are you amenable to consider some special court to attend to corruption cases so that people begin to see that we are serious in dealing with corruption and finalizing the corruption cases as soon as possible in order to then send a message to society that if you engage in these things, you're going to be caught and you'll be sent to jail for a very long time. That is one reason. But the second reason I'm raising this matter is, which you may not have to respond to, corruption cases are now used by those in power to settle political scores. So they just taint people, pretend to be taking them to court, and they leave them there hanging for so many years with a dark cloud, so that these people are not a threat to their office occupation. So I think that perhaps, I don't know, you'll guide me there, President, have we not reached a point where we need special courts to deal with matters of corruption as speedily as possible so that the country and the world can see that South Africa is serious in dealing with these matters of corruption?
I think every right-thinking South African would agree that that's a fine idea. But I don't know if we'd be able to create such courts within the resources we have now. I mean, the courts are currently struggling with their workload. We are short-staffed. I mean, I don't even, we all know what's going on. I guess it would depend on whether the minister, if the idea was posited to him, the proposal was posited to him, did not come back with the usual answer that Treasury says there's no money. The country was not broke in 2010, Mr. Malem. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Malema.
Follow up on that one, Acting President.
Yes, you may proceed, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe on that same question, President, just to expand on it. Shouldn't the specialty start with the investigation and also with the NPA? And also to say, the crimes we have now, that some of them you might have seen on appeal, can we still really say there is no convergence between investigation and the prosecutorial role, the complexity of the matters, the way we have them today? And I think what comes to mind to me, which at least at the time, which was foresight, was something like a DSO that had some powers of investigating and cushioning, and also in terms of, now what we have is a situation where the Hawks or the police investigate, takes time, they give the NPA tells them to go back to look at this and that, takes another time. By the time the matter goes to court, it's 3 or 4 years, and sometimes there's no indictment after 6 or 7 appearances. So that is the kind of question I'm asking, that shouldn't that be the kind of thing we're looking into, so that we're able to have matters being investigated quickly, being prosecuted quickly, and also, if, for example, with the Special Commercial Crimes Court, if it is then overwhelmed, there's a basis to say we may create a special role or we may create a special court as per the suggestion of Commissioner Malema. But if we do it now, there's no case that the Special Corruption Court will do. So that is the kind of question I'm having. What will be your view? I mean, the Glen Vista case states the requirements of a kind of corruption-busting institution. What are the powers and all that kind of acting president?
You are making sense, Minister. You are making sense. I don't see any contradiction between what he proposes and what you are saying. You are just beefing up the process from inception now, from investigation. But his idea remains that specialist courts will be needed for a few reasons, few good reasons. But what you say also is they should be combined, and with that composite mechanism, I'm sure we'd make great inroads into this cancer that has brought our country to its knees.
President, may I just follow up on this as well? It's me, this side, President, just quickly. Can I follow up on this quickly?
Yes, please do,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
President, the point is, I think the idea of the NEEC introduced by the Chief Justice is something that one would keep those institutions, strengthen up, because what Commissioner Malema is saying here, to me, is one of the issues that makes people, the public, to lose confidence. Particularly with these cases of the ANC step aside, they are putting all of them in jail every day, with cases to stay there 8 years. I have a case in the Eastern Cape. it is 8 years, the Mandela case. It has nothing, I mean, we can raise it to you, but if we took them to that NEC, we track on the cases, what is the reason why it is remaining there, at least there would be, other than the institution which needs to be polished up, but from the court's point of view, a mechanism, because we owe it to those who are accused, a duty that these matters are finalized, also to the country, corruption that it is dealt with. It's a balanced approach.
I hear you, Commissioner.
Follow up.
Commissioner Singh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Acting President. President Maya, we all know of the saying, in for a penny, in for a pound. Now, we've spent so many pennies, that's gone to over 2 billion rand, as Commissioner Malema has said. Now, surely as a country, we can find resources somewhere to ensure that we follow through logically on prosecuting the people that have been involved in this corruption, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit the country as a whole if these people are put behind bars and in orange overalls, and we'll have more money and there'll be more confidence, not only in the judiciary, but confidence in the country itself for foreign investors, etc. There was a time when I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, about funding being made available from outside sources, for these kinds of prosecutions, or to beef up the judiciary. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I think I did read somewhere. Yes. And I don't know what your view is on that kind of thing. Because, I mean, we've got funds that we get from IMF, from World Bank, from everywhere else. I mean, what would your view be on that?
Well, I think, look, the principle, I agree with the principle as a taxpayer, South African, but the other logistics I would leave to Minister Lamola and Treasury. I don't know if I don't know how those work, getting funding elsewhere, and if maybe we can't find resources from our broke bank account. But I agree with the principle as an ordinary South African.
Acting President, that's me.
Commissioner Malema.
No, the reason why we're raising this issue is because if you are a head of the judiciary, you are going to inherit this, I don't want to say a bad image or lack of confidence by our people on the judiciary because of how long we take to resolve some of these issues, which are a big problem for our country. So in as much as we don't have a budget, but an idea that is put in a very structural manner, so that even tomorrow we get money somewhere, we're able to say, okay, this is how we're going to move towards making sure that we restore the image of the judiciary. Many of women don't report rape because it takes forever to just resolve it. And the humiliation of going through and coming back and going, I want to deal with this pain and deal with it and finish it so that I can reclaim my life. But there are no specialized courts that deals with these fundamental issues that are confronting our people. And I think that it's a point that perhaps you need to consider when appointed.
Thank you, Commissioner Malema. President Maya, I've got a few propositions that I want to put to you.
Yes.
For your comment. The first one is, if you were to be appointed the next Chief Justice, do you think that the environment would be conducive for you to replicate the many positives that you achieved at the SCA, at all levels within the judiciary.
Yes, Chair. I have no doubt that's eminently possible with the support of my colleagues, of course, who I know also have the best interests of our institution at heart.
Thank you. Earlier, you did mention that you are firm, and I think your firmness was put to good use at the SCA several times, because whenever problems arose, you were courageous enough to nip them in the bud.
It is a characteristic of my clan, especially the women of that clan, Ogadebe. Intombi zaKogadebe ziyaziwa diphi.
Then the other issue that I want to raise with you, you know, when I read the comment from the BLA, especially the second last or penultimate paragraph, unnumbered, of their comments, page 3, where they say, you know, during 2017, 18, 19, 20, the acting appointments at the SCA favored white males. And this caused me to check my records. And I observed that during your stewardship, from April 2018 to April 2021, 13 judges were appointed to the SCA, 2 white males, 1 white female, and 10 black judges, 6 of whom are women. And the point that I want to put to you is that the concern raised by the BLA seems, in my view, to quibble about acting appointments and overlooking an important consideration relating to permanent appointments over the same period at the SCA. South African judges come from various backgrounds, and you did earlier on when Commissioner Nokesi put some questions to you, gave us an insight of some of them. But what I want to put to you is that regardless of their past affiliations, be they political or otherwise, judges are always expected to be scrupulously faithful to their oath of office and to decide cases that come before them with integrity, courage, by applying the law to the facts of the case.
Yes.
Thank you. And the other issue I want to put to you is that in my view, it is an illusion to think that this Chief Justice is a supernatural person with monopoly of wisdom who will have answers to every challenge that might confront the judiciary.
Yeah.
And that an astute Chief Justice will recognize the fact that within the judiciary, there will always be judges with special skills, talents, and indeed leadership qualities.
Yeah.
And the Chief Justice would then be well advised to tap on those talents in taking the judiciary forward.
I couldn't have said it better.
We are almost at the tail end of the interview. Do you have anything that you would wish to say that may, in your view, be of assistance to us during our deliberations before we adjourn for the day?
No, DP, I'm going to disappoint you. I don't have a closing statement. I think I've said enough here. All I want to do is to ask for an opportunity to thank all the people who nominated me and supported my candidacy, especially the women. Women are notorious. One of the commissioners mentioned this. Women are notorious. I think it was Commissioner Malema. Women are notorious for not being able to support one another, but in this case, well, and in other cases too, but we're here now, in this particular case, they moved heaven and earth to ensure that my name becomes, well, not my name, I'm the guinea pig, if I may put it that way. A woman gets an opportunity, to be considered for this, such an important job. And it's such an honor for me to be that woman. And whichever way the decision goes, I will remain forever grateful for this opportunity to all those who made it possible. I think women have, Commissioner Lucas said it, we've broken, we've just caused yet another crack in this glass ceiling just by having a woman come in and sit here for this kind of proceedings. This is a huge victory for women, just being able to sit here and address you. So I'm thankful for that opportunity. And those people almost crashed my phone with all the messages of support. Thanks to them all. That is all, DP. Thank you. And commissioners.
Well, it remains for me to thank you for availing yourself and for your candid answers to the questions that were put to you by the commissioners, which will no doubt be borne in mind during our deliberations. You are at this stage excused.
Never thought the moment would come.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good luck with the rest of the proceedings, commissioners.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners, this then concludes the business of the day. Shall we then resume tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on the dot?
Sorry, I'm sorry, Acting President. There's just a small issue I wanted to raise. If we can let the media leave. It won't be more than 5 minutes.
Mr. Chilane, will you please ensure that the venue is cleared and only members of the commission remain? Thank you.
Okay. No, ungahamba. Nochesi. Yeah, you must